Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, powered by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, episode number 200. James Blakenbeckler, Buck Drunk, Day Walkers, Game Camera Triangulation, and the 3 F's of deer calling. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Horny Buck Seed Company, the Euro Hanger, and Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, this is Sarah from Apple. You're listening to my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Milo Hansen, and you're listening to the Big Buck Registry, the Big Buck Podcast.
This is Matt Drury with Drury Outdoors, and you're listening to my favorite podcast on iTunes, the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast.
Hey, what's happening, guys? This is Jay from the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. And you know what? Once again, you're here with me to listen to another amazing interview with some amazing deer hunters that, quite frankly, are some of the best deer hunters on the planet. And also right over here in our corner. I'm just thrilled to have him here on episode number 200. Is Dusty Phillips, our co-host from Ohio. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great, Jay. The weather's nice. Turkey season's about to wrap up here in Ohio on the 21st, which is tomorrow. And man, I tell you what, it feels like summer and time to get your food plots out and get to growing deer and raising your deer and give them a healthier, better life.
Very nice, man. I know you missed this particular interview that we had with our guest today, James Blakenbeckler, but I got to say there was a lot of similarities between you and James in the sense of you both understand haying. You were having some issues with some equipment that had broken down. I said, Dusty's knee deep in haying right now. He goes, oh man, I so understand that. So he knew exactly what you were into.
Yeah, hay is its own monster, and once you commit to mowing it down, then you got to tend to it to get it to a final product, and it's a process, and it seems like it's every night till you get it baled up and ready to go. You mow it, you ted it out, you rake it, you bale it, and it's usually, sometimes you can make 2-day hay, just depends on what the humidity is like and what the breeze is like, and sometimes you make 5-day hay because there's no wind, real high humidity, and just don't want to, pull the moisture out of the grass or the alfalfa or whatever you happen to cut down that particular time you're cutting. But just like I said, it's its own monster, and you gotta really tend to it. It's literally like having a kid laying in a field. If you don't take care of it and roll it over and make sure that it's doing okay, in the end, you really have a junk product if you don't really focus on tending to it. And, there's going to be times where I'm going to miss a show because I got hay on the ground, and it's part of the journey.
Dude, can you believe we're hitting number 200 today?
Yeah, it's quite amazing, really. In the beginning, it was like, wow, we've done 5 shows, and now it's like, man, we've done 200.
Right.
Holy cow, Jay, that's quite the accomplishment, and been a great journey. And cheers to the next 100.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Let's go 400. But the 200, we started this back in January 2013, and it was 200 shows ago. We've had some others in between. But man, what an incredible journey. We've met some amazing deer hunters. We've met some amazing people and celebrity hunters as well. And it's just very fulfilling. And I want to say from the studios of the Big Buck Registry, thank you for tuning in and giving us this opportunity to bring content to you. We think this is like a dream job for us. So, we're going to keep bringing it as often as you keep listening.
Yeah, definitely much appreciated to everybody that downloads, follows, likes, clicks on anything that we put out there. It's been one heck of a journey, and we're thrilled to call you all our friends. And every week we bring you a new show and try to help you better your hunts in the whitetail woods.
Very much so. Well, I do want to remind everybody we're still running the harness program. We have a few to give out. So if you're in need of a harness for your tree stand, because for whatever reason you don't have one, we have some available here. So just shoot me or Dusty an email, Jay or Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com if you are in need of a harness. And, of course, you can always send some in. You can email us about your donation as well. Another little housekeeping, I wanted to let you know that we've got a little project going on with the NWTF and Fred Bird. We're launching a new podcast called The Strut Zone, NWTF All Access. And we're in production right now. And I think probably within the next week, you should see at least episode 0 on the playlist at iTunes, or maybe in the next 2 weeks. But we're in production. We're laying it down. It's going to look very similar to this show. We're actually, ironically, have similar guests that Fred has already lined up for interviews. So you can see that great minds think alike. But that's going to be an all-turkey podcast completely. I'm just the editor. I'm just the producer. I'm not really saying much on these shows, but I'm learning a lot. I'm kicking back like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. I guess that's what happens when you listen to podcasts about the things you're interested in, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be one heck of a journey to hear how the Strut Zone NWTF All Access is going to produce and how it's going to end up. And everybody should be excited for a turkey hunting podcast.
I can't wait. Speaking of other podcasts, Carrie Zilka over at what was once known as the Wild World of Carrie Z, now turned into the Hunt Fish Travel podcast, is turning 5 years old on May 23rd. So I wanted to say happy birthday to the Hunt Fish Travel podcast. I think that's a great milestone, and we're hitting that milestone today with the number 200. So it's just a day of milestones. So before we get to Jim Keller, I just want to tell you just a little bit about James Blakenbeckler. James, he's a former Marine, and he actually decided to get out of the Marines because he met his wife, and he knew that if he stayed in the Marine Corps, that the chances of staying married was pretty slim. So he actually decided to get out and has spent a life so far with his wife in a small town in Indiana where the deer hunting is rich, in his hometown growing up. And James, as you listen to this interview, you'll pick up on some amazing ideas that he shared with me during this interview that I hadn't really thought about before. But here's a couple of little tips. We got into deer calling, for example. He has actually taught seminars on what he calls the 3 F's of deer calling. He talks about the day walking bucks and why they're important. He talks about how he leans on game cameras quite a bit to identify where a buck is traveling. Specifically, he does a triangulation with certain cameras on trails, and then he can pinpoint that core area. And one of my most favorite pieces of this entire episode is that he talks about the elevated ground blind, and we all know what ground blinds are, but he spends a lot of time elevating them above 6 feet. He says that he seems to get a completely different reaction with deer acting naturally as long as he's above the 6 foot mark, but in the ground blind, he has an incredible sight of view, and he can put these things out in the middle of the open, and the deer don't seem to care. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He's going to explain why that seems to work. Then he talks about the drunk buck walk, a mannerism or some body language that he's read off of bucks when he's calling to them, doing the snort, grunt, wheeze type tactics. And we're going to get into his whole calling sequence that he uses to draw in the bigger bucks to a closer range for a bow shot. But he says when they start doing the drunk walk, that's your opportunity. You know what's going to happen. So I thought that was just kind of interesting way to look at what calling can do. It's a lot like turkey hunting, but he's saying he's kind of got a bit of a mastery going of calling in bucks like we would call in a turkey.
No kidding.
I think you're going to enjoy what we talk about on today's show. And I'm talking to not only you, Dusty, but everybody that's listening.
Absolutely.
So let's turn to Jim Keller with the deer news.
The deer news this week is sponsored by the Euro Hanger. You don't have to spend big bucks to hang your big buck. Get yourself a Euro Hanger. Facebook.com/Eurohanger, EUROHANGER.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week, Tree Stands Safety Foundation gets boost from Summit and TMA. This story was originally featured on the deeranddeerhunting.com website and was written by Keith Barnett. Tree Stand Safety Awareness Foundation is pleased to announce that the Tree Stand Manufacturers Association, the TMA, and Summit Tree Stands have become charter partners with the TSSA Foundation. TMA and Summit presented checks of $2,000 and $5,000 respectively at the 2017 TMA annual meeting held at Big Cedar Lodge in Branson, Missouri. Dr. Glenn Mayhew, president of the TSSA Foundation, received the donations from TMA Executive Director John Lauk and Eric Presley of Summit Tree Stands for the 501c3 foundation. Within the support of organizations such as TMA and Summit, Mayhew said, TSSA Foundation would not be able to make progress in meeting its mission of significantly reducing tree stand incidents through promotion, education, and best practices. Mayhew provided the opening presentation, amplifying the mission, at the conference. The presentation focused on how the outdoor industry can work in a collaborative manner across multiple platforms to reduce the number of tree stand-related falls. He provided data analysis of approximately 700 tree stand falls collected from 10 states. The TSSA Foundation is seeking additional charter partners. It can be reached at treestandsafe@gmail.com. TSSA Foundation can be followed on Facebook at Tree Stand Safety Awareness and on Twitter at TreeStandSafety or at www.treestandsafetyawareness.org. NDA launches Coffee and Deer Facebook Live show. This story was originally featured on the National Deer Alliance website. The National Deer Alliance, the NDA, is launching a new Facebook Live show on the organization's Facebook page called Coffee and Deer. The program will feature NDA President and CEO Nick Pinizzuto taking questions from the audience about deer hunting and the outdoor industry. The first show was on Wednesday, May 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Initially, the show will run on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, but that is subject to change as the program evolves. To join the discussion, simply go to the NDA Facebook page at the scheduled time. From there, you will be able to watch the show and ask questions. It is anticipated that the show will run for about 10 minutes, and most questions not answered live will be addressed on the page afterward. No more screwworm medications for key deer as threat wanes. This story was originally featured on the Washington Times News website. Endangered deer in the Florida Keys are no longer receiving anti-parasite medication to protect against flesh-eating screwworms. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says the key deer no longer need oral medications because it's been over 3 months since the last confirmed screwworm infection in the National Key Deer Refuge. A screwworm infestation that began late summer killed 135 key deer. Officials said the infestation was a potential extinction event for the unique herd, which includes fewer than 1,000 deer in the lower Florida Keys. Wildlife officials said in their statement Wednesday that female deer with radio tracking collars will be monitored daily for screwworms through the summer. Millions of male screwworm flies were sterilized with radiation have been released to suppress the fly's wild population. Those releases ended April 25th. Deer wrangled in Wadena, Minnesota Walmart. This story was originally featured in the KARE Channel 11 News website and was written by Jay Knoll. Walmart shoppers in Wadena got a real sense of the outdoors Tuesday night when a deer strolled into the store. Stephanie Koljanen of Wadena witnessed the commotion. We were in the pet aisle when we heard what sounded like shells falling, then a woman screaming, she said. We rushed to help, and that's when we saw a deer was on the loose. Koljonen says a fellow shopper swooped in and corralled the deer, gently holding it and covering its eyes so it wouldn't be spooked. That's when Koljonen grabbed her camera, she snapped a photo, and shared it on Facebook. Her post now has more than 1,000 shares. Authorities later responded and freed the deer. Koljonen discovered the deer apparently strolled through a motion sensor door in the garden center and had eventually made its way into the aisles. No shoppers or deer were injured in the spectacle. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas on future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller with the Deer News. Without further ado, here's James Blakenbeckler.
James Blakenbeckler, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. What's going on in your world right now?
Actually, right now we have some high winds, and I live in the middle of nowhere, so I am sitting at a gas station speaking to you right now because my microcell went out. Without it, I don't have phone service.
Well, thank you for making the move. I appreciate it. We've been talking about doing this for some time, and sometimes that weather thing gets in the way of our connection to the rest of the world. So thank you for driving down to the gas station so we can have a chat.
Yeah, no problem. I'm actually quite used to it living out here.
Oh, is that right? Oh, no kidding. Where is here? Where are you?
I live in a small town called Hillsboro, Indiana. Probably around 600 people in my township. So it's real small. We don't have stoplights. We got a flashing light in my town. No gas stations, no grocery stores. We do have a hardware, and that's about it.
So very small town, USA.
Very, very small, surrounded by fields and woods is all we have around us.
What do you do to socialize? Is there a bar or a place that you go and hang out?
Me personally, I just do a lot with sporting goods stores and stuff. I mean, most of my friends hunt, and we grew up hunting and fishing, so we got local archery shops that we've always hung out at, and we just sit around and tell stories. I mean, what's better than that? Hanging out with friends and talking hunting.
That's great. That's what I'd like to do right here on the podcast. But I found out over the course of my life that this stuff happens every day somewhere in America. So this is not uncommon for somebody to start telling deer stories, and that's thought we'd put it into some kind of a digital format. So I understand what you're saying. That's what happens in America, right? That's where people love to talk about their deer hunting strategies and stories, and it's a camaraderie. It's a friendship.
It's a year-round thing for people with the passion like we have. I mean, I travel a lot. I do a lot for Cabela's and stuff. I actually just did an event, and that's 90% of what I do is talk to people about hunting and pick up tips and techniques from all across America, and it's great. I mean, you're right. Somebody is doing this right now somewhere else at a small bow shop or somewhere. Somebody's talking hunting with some friends.
You're in small town USA, Indiana, and it's. I mean, did you grow up there?
I did. I grew up in the same county I live in now. Born and raised here. I went to college for a year and then joined the Marine Corps, and I left for 9 years. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I moved right back home. They say no place like home, and I can honestly say I traveled all over the world in the Marines, and I love the Midwest. I love hunting deer, and to me, this is home, and it's where I want to come back to.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for your service and being in the Marine Corps. How did you enjoy being a Marine? Is it something that will always be with you?
Oh, without a doubt. It was the single greatest decision of my life, besides getting married to my wife.
Gotcha.
And that's the reason I got out. So, I mean, that decision overweighed the Marine Corps. But hands down, what you get out of the Marine Corps and the friendships you get out of the Marines. I mean, I joined in 1995. I remember boot camp like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I still have the same people I went to boot camp with still keep in contact with me, and vice versa. The people I went to high school with and middle school with, we don't talk at all, hardly anybody.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you're still tight with your Marine Corps buddies, but the people that the middle schools, the high school guys and gals, not so much.
Not so much. I have one friend that I've been friends with since we were 5 years old, so 37 years of friendship. And don't get me wrong, I still talk to some people, but it's not the same. It's not the same friendships that I have with the people I serve with in the military.
Right.
There's a different bond there, and anybody listening to this that's in the military or has served in the military, they understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. And I can appreciate that. I was not in the military myself, but I can certainly understand how you can get very close to somebody that's gone through some experiences just like you, and it builds bonds that are probably as strong as any you'll ever have ever. They're that powerful.
100% correct on that one.
You went back to the small town out of the Marine Corps to marry your wife of today. So how did that happen?
I actually met my wife while I was still in the military.
Okay.
And we got married on my last duty station, and I had to make a choice to either re-enlist, and I was going to go to an aircraft carrier for a year and a half, and newlyweds, and the divorce rate in the Marine Corps is ridiculous. So I had to make that choice right then and there. Yeah. Was I going to risk my new marriage, or get out? And I decided to get out. I had a ton of job offers waiting for me at home, so I made the decision to just get out, and I don't regret it. Even though I love the military, my wife has definitely been more important to me than the military was.
Gotcha. Yeah, very good. You have a family?
Just two dogs. We don't have children. Just me and my wife, and we have two, a yellow and a chocolate lab, and well, those just like kids does.
Dogs are like kids, very much so. They become your kids in many different ways. It's animals are funny like that. Gotcha. So it's you and the wife, two dogs, in a great deer hunting place, I would imagine. I mean, what's the deer hunting in that area like? I think in Indiana, I think some of the greatest deer hunting in the country. Well,
we're going to keep that a secret because we don't need more people coming here. But we do have some really good deer hunting. I mean, we're a legit 130 to 150 class state as far as, on a Pope and Young or a Boone and Crockett scale.
Right.
But we're set up for deer hunting. I mean, like where I live, we have anything from rolling hills to flat ground, small wood lots to 7 miles of solid woods, creek bottoms, and tons of farmland.
Wow. Just as far as the eye can see, I would imagine.
That's all there is in between towns. So like when I say I live in a rural area, we live in a very small town, and it's 5 miles in any direction before you get to the next small town, and everything in between that 5 miles, besides maybe a house here and there, is nothing but farm ground and woods.
No kidding. All right. So growing up, pre-Marine Corps, was there any hunting that was involved in your life?
That is all I did as a child.
Really? Okay. Tell us about that.
A little bit of fishing, but mainly hunting. I started hunting when I started squirrel and rabbit hunting maybe around 6-7 years old. And then I started deer hunting at 14. And once I started deer hunting, there was nothing else I wanted to do but deer hunt. And I did it as much as humanly possible. In fact, my senior year of high school, when I graduated, they changed the attendance policy at my school, because under the old policy, I figured the rules out to where I could miss a maximum amount of days during deer season and not get it.
So you had it calculated.
I honestly did. I sit down and figured up, because I wanted to hunt every day that I could, and I played football, so I had to go to school in the afternoons.
Yep.
So I knew how many mornings I could miss the deer hunt before I would get expelled from school or couldn't graduate.
Do you remember how many days you probably missed deer hunting?
I missed 32 days my senior year, 32 mornings, which equaled 16 days. We can miss 16 days a year and still graduate. But because I was missing half days, and at the time they just counted the hours, so I missed 32 days to deer hunt. Wow.
All right. But so you had a plan. I mean, it sounds like you're a planner. Like you had this mapped out and you knew what you wanted. That's pretty cool.
I do that still to this day.
To this day. Gotcha. Do you remember what the first weapon was that you ever shot?
I shot I believe it was a 790 Crossman BB gun that shot the 177 caliber pellets. And that's what I started hunting chipmunks and stuff with when I was a little boy. And that's where I honed my shooting skills. Actually, we used to sit up in the backyard, me and my little brother, and just have contests all day. I mean, we lived in the middle of nowhere, so there was no other kids and stuff around us. So we would set up shooting ranges and compete against each other to see who could shoot the best.
Gotcha. Were you a good shot back then?
I could hold my own. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I don't want to say I was a great shot, because I know there's other people out there better, but I could hold my own.
Was your interest in shooting as a hobby beneficial for your Marine Corps training?
Yeah. So when I joined the Marine Corps, and we did rifle range and we did snap-in and everything, it was exceptionally easy for me. I qualified expert every time with no effort.
Gotcha.
Just from the fundamentals I learned as a child, and then carried it all the way through for the next 11 years before I joined the Marine Corps. I mean, I shot every year a ton. I mean, we probably shot 150, 200 days a year between summer and spring until fall got around.
Wow. So, I mean, that's what you did, it sounds like. Like this was just a routine. This was something you did a lot.
Yeah, and it was something that me and my little brother did together, and we were competitive with each other. So it grew our bond as family, and he never hunted, but he shot. So when I was hunting in the fall, once it was over, we'd go back to shooting and competing against each other. So it was fun.
Right. That's awesome. Are you a competitive guy by nature?
I am very competitive growing up, and I'm still exceptionally competitive, but I'm more competitive now with myself. I set standards and that I want to achieve, and so I'm competitive that way. And don't get me wrong, if I'm around you and we're shooting a bow or something like that, I'm going to buckle down and make sure that I'm either beating you or hanging with you, because I don't like to lose at all.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm starting to understand your personality a little bit. So growing up, other than playing with pellet guns and having some fun-spirited competitions, were there other people in your life that influenced you to begin a life of hunting in the field, or just somebody that you looked up to as a mentor?
Yes, and that's my best friend and his dad. So just a quick background. I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather died when I was 7 years old, so I didn't have a father in my life.
Okay.
And my best friend's dad, his name was Lesson Max Paddock, and my best friend's name's Chuck Paddock. His dad was the preacher at our church, and he kind of tucked me and my little brother in, and then I had more interest in hunting and stuff than my little brother, and he's actually who got me into hunting. And then I looked up to both of them. So Lesson wasn't a big hunter, but he understood the outdoors, and he took us to the outdoors and stuff. Where Chuck was 2 years older than me, and he was obsessed with hunting. So he became the big brother in my life that offered that side to me to fuel my passion. And when I started bow hunting at 14, we didn't have the money to buy a bow. So I'm a right-handed person. Chuck's left-handed. So they wanted me to get into deer hunting. And so I taught myself to shoot left-handed because I wanted to deer hunt so bad. I picked up a left-handed bow, lifted weights all year until I could draw it back, and taught myself to shoot left-handed. And to this day, I still shoot a bow left-handed. I can shoot either hand. I can shoot ambidextrous with a bow or a gun just for that reason.
Oh, wow.
Yes. But I taught myself because I wanted to bow hunt so bad. I taught myself to shoot left-handed at 14 years old just so I could get to the woods.
No kidding. That's quite a feat. I don't know anybody I don't think I've met anybody that can shoot a bow efficiently both-handed. That's crazy. That's really cool.
I'm good left-handed for quite a ways. Right-handed, I'm good 40 and under.
Okay. All right. That could be useful. I mean, I can see how that being useful in the field, especially if you're on the ground trying to put a stock on or something like that.
With a shotgun, it's exceptionally useful because I've shot turkeys with both hands.
I bet.
Because it doesn't matter which side they come on. I just switch shoulders.
Right. Oh, that's so incredibly useful in turkey hunting. I can see that. There's so many times I want to take a left-handed shot, but I didn't have the feel for it to actually do it, so I didn't.
You don't think about it either. Because I tell people, I help people and I take people hunting and I teach them, and to me it's second nature. I want to shoot right-handed with a shotgun, but if something comes into my left, I just switch arms naturally.
Right. That's so convenient. It's such a great way to be able to hunt. Very nice. That's all that hard work paid off, or that fun work paid off, I should say. So today, as an adult, as you hunt around the country and spend a lot of time in the field, still today, as you did when you were a youngster, how has your view of hunting evolved? What's your philosophy of hunting today versus what it was then? What does it mean to you?
So when I started out, I think it filled a void in my life, and it helped me become just a better person. And then I got competitive with it just like everybody else, and then I wanted to kill as much as possible and stuff like that. But at that time, I didn't understand how hunting brought people together. And now that I'm older and I get to travel and hunt, I think hunting, when you go across the world, and today, if you look at social media and stuff, today people fight with each other about everything. You can't do it that way because that's not the way I was raised or whatever. And we're hunters against each other. But I travel and meet so many people. Hunting truly brings people together, and it's something that we share as a passion across the country. I mean, I've been to Mexico, Canada, all across the U.S., and the one thing that's the same is the passion, and it's just the philosophy that's different in the hunting. And now that I'm able to give back to people and take people hunting and see people fulfill their dreams and something that they've wanted to do, it's some of the best feelings and some of the best friendships I'll ever have in my life, minus the military.
Gotcha. It's hunting means so much to so many these days that I like to get everybody's spin on it. So thank you for filling us in on kind of what it means to you today.
No problem.
So hunting has been a part of your life for quite a while. It's a part of your life today. And you are involved with Open Season TV, which looks like you have a quite a large number of followers on Facebook. You're on television. You want to tell us how all that got started?
Yeah, actually, Chuck Paddock, was my best friend. We're 50-50 owners, how you want to say it. Me and him are the owners and the co-hosts of it. But how it got started is, and this is a little feedback into my personality, we'll go back to the bow shops, and some of the reasons why I don't have a lot of friends around where I live now, or people that I am close to. Well, I was sitting in the bow shop one night, and I live around a lot of great hunters. And I'm going to tell you, the guys that I was talking to that night are some of the best hunters that you'll meet across America. And we were sitting there talking about TV shows, and just like everybody else, did you see, so-and-so killed this buck on, the Outdoor Channel and so-and-so. And we were talking about it, and, I simply said, if we had that opportunity, we're talented enough to do this. We can hunt, and I wasn't being egotistical. It's just the facts. we all grew up hunting and become good hunters, just like millions of people across America today are great hunters. They're just not known because they didn't take a chance or somebody hasn't discovered them. Just like there's singers out there that somebody hasn't discovered that's better than the singers of today, right, on the radio. And they laughed at me and they turned it into like I was being egotistical and stuff. And I don't take being told that I can't do something very well. So when they told me that there's no way I could do it, I literally told them next year I'll be on TV. And that's how the conversation pretty much ended. We met a guy named Tommy Martineer who started Open Season TV.
Okay.
And we just became pro staff. And the next year I was on TV. And then from there it evolved to where Tommy's job and stuff, he's a landscaper down in Alabama. He just didn't have the time for it. So Chuck and I took the show over, and we've been running it ever since 2010. And it's just grown leaps and bounds, and it's afforded me opportunities I never thought possible in the hunting world.
That's crazy. So here you are working in the outdoor industry on television with a well-known brand, and you get to do it with your best friend.
100% correct.
That's a good gig. That's a good gig.
And back to my childhood, because not everybody understands this, and I get asked this question all the time, and why I do it, and you'll meet people that understand hunting and stuff. So I break it down like this. I tell people, I said, what did you love as a child? And some people love music, some people love sports, and they wanted to be, professional football, baseball, basketball players, professional singers, whatever they wanted to be, astronauts. And I say, are you getting paid to do that today? Or are you afforded the opportunity? Are companies coming up to you and wanting you to use their product or giving you shoes and stuff because they want you to show them off and play tennis in them? And they're like, no. I said, my childhood, all I wanted to do was hunt. I get paid to hunt.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story, and something. I mean, so many people would want to be in your shoes. That's fantastic, and to do it with your best friend, and it's just mind blowing. So you've had a bunch of episodes of your show. Mm-hmm. What's the most interesting? Can you narrow it down to the most interesting one to you? Is there one that kind of sticks out more than others? I'm sure they're all special in some way, shape, or form. But is there one in particular that you find more interesting than others?
Not really. It's funny because I don't even watch them. I mean, I watch them when they're being edited and stuff. But as far as most memorable episodes that we've done, so the first year we did this, Chuck and I, everybody told us, because we knew some other people that had done TV shows and stuff, and they said, don't feel bad if you struggle for years. And we sit down and talked about it, and we said, look, the only thing that's changing is we're going to be filming each other, and we never kill on the same day. We have never killed deer on the same day.
Okay.
But so the only thing that's going to change is we're going to be filming each other, and we both know how to hunt. We're just putting another person in the stand. And that first year, we killed 3 Pope and Young class whitetails on film, and we did them back to back to back in 4 days. We just boom, 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 just started laying down deer, and it was like a dream that it was happening so fast, and that we were able to do that. In that manner. And from there on, it's been that way for us ever since. And I think it's because we were true hunters first. We weren't people that just wanted to be on TV and had good personalities and convinced somebody to put us on TV. We were passionate, hardcore hunters that picked up a camera.
When you're doing the filming, right? I mean, there's not one that naturally sticks out, but were there any moments behind the scenes, off camera, little funny moments that you can remember that come to mind?
Well, so we annually just do a rifle antelope hunt, and we put 4 guys in a truck, and I'm not going to tell you everything we say and stuff, but we get 4 guys in a truck, and we do it ourselves. We either draw tags or buy landowner vouchers somewhere in New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, wherever we can get together. Mm-hmm. And we get 4 hunters and a cameraman, and we go have a blast. And the things that are said, I can't say on this episode and stuff, but
okay.
Imagine taking 4 good friends,
right,
putting them in a vehicle and bleeping everything that's said out, making fun of each other for 3 days, 16 hours a day. It's the funnest thing that we do, hands down. It's not the hardest hunt we do. It's not the biggest animals we kill, but it's a break from all the work and all the stress, and we just have a blast doing it.
Got it. All right. I have the painted picture in my head. Now I understand what it's like going to deer camp with you guys. Totally understand.
It is a blast.
It's very similar to what happened during some of our deer camps with Dusty Phillips and Mike Behrman and or turkey camp in New Hampshire. I get it. It's almost identical. Very cool. Very, very cool. It's a fun time.
I do have a funny story filming, though.
All right, let's hear it. Yeah, let's hear it.
So Chuck and I are still filming each other. Today we have our own camera, and we've grown enough that we don't do a lot together, but we were still filming together, and we were in Colorado up in the mountains mule deer hunting, and it was tough. I mean, Chuck killed a great buck the first day we were there, I believe, and then I hunted 4 days nonstop, and we were heading to the airport, and we decided to go on this ranch one more time that we had access to. And we found a nice buck. He was just going to gross Pope and Young, maybe net it. I don't know. I don't put things in the record book, so I couldn't tell you. I just know he's a good buck. And we chased him up a mountain and shot him. And he ran straight down the mountain, and I ended up finishing him off. He was going to die, but I'm a firm believer if they're standing and I can put another arrow in them, I'm going to put another arrow in them. I've actually shot 3 deer 3 times with a bow, all within 40 yards of where it initially got shot.
Gotcha.
But I was so excited because I was thinking this hunt's over. We're literally heading to the airport, and I got a great buck, another record class buck under my belt. When I shot the buck, it fell in a creek, a small stream there, and it was really shallow water. I mean, it wasn't even over our over rubber boots if you're wearing rubber boots. And I got excited, and Chuck swings the camera back to me for to get the reaction when I finished him off and stuff. And I walked towards him real fast in excitement, and he stepped back and fell in the only water hole that was there, and it was over his head. So he takes a $3,000 camera, mic system, and everything for a swim down the river real quick on that one.
Yep.
So, but if you would have been there, it was hilarious. The look on his face when he slid off the rock and was trying to throw the camera to me.
Catch.
Yeah, it didn't work too good, though. He took it with him.
Oh, man, that's funny. Very good. Let's get into some deer hunting strategies. I mean, it seems like you've got a lot of strategies to talk about here. You've been doing this for a very long time. You got a TV show. You hang out with good buddies, and it sounds like you lay down animals pretty much all the time. And I'm curious to hear how you go about it. Now, you mentioned that deer hunting or deer season or hunting is really all year round in some way, shape, or form. I'd like to go through kind of like a year summary with you, try to figure out what your mind is going through during the phases of the year. Where would you normally start? I mean, there is no starting point for deer hunting. I understand that. But where would you like to start in this 360?
Sure. Our season goes out the first Saturday in January.
Okay.
And that's where my season starts for this year. So We're in 2017 now, and my season started the day after Sunday or Monday, my season started this year. So as soon as our season goes out, I go back into feeding protein and stuff because I want to get my deer back healthy from in the winter. And here in Indiana, we can't bait and we can't feed during season. Everything has to be out 10 days prior to any hunting. You got to dig up the soil. You got to do all this stuff, and that's what we do. But as soon as season's out, I want to replenish my deer herd. So I put everything out. I throw out my covert trail cameras because I want to know what lived. And now I'm feeding them. And if it's winter, they're going to come in. And so I just monitoring that. Then once the snow melts off, which is going to be sometime in February, March time frame, then we're out shed hunting, and I'm walking every square inch of every property I have just to see if anything has changed. Has creeks washed out? Has ravines changed? Has trees fallen so the trails have changed? So I literally grid, and this is where we're talking about how I plan everything. I grid all my properties off into sections, and I walk different sections because in March is when I find where I'm going to kill deer in October, November, and December.
Gotcha.
And
that makes sense.
And I can't remember the last time I killed a deer that I didn't find the tree stand in March, April time frame before it greens up. So it's just nonstop walking. I like to shed hunt. I'm horrible at it. I'd love to tell you that I find every deer shed and stuff, but that's not the truth. What I do find is I find where deer like to live. And then once I know the areas they like to hang out in, then I can start strategizing for the year. And then now we're in May, late May. So we go through turkey season. As soon as our turkey season's out, it's food plot time. And so right now we're mowing and preparing food plots for the year. And then through the summer, it's just monitoring deer and what deer lived and how they're growing, where they're living. And deer are going to shift summer range to winter range, and we know that. And as you get to know bucks and their personalities, you'll know this buck's going to be here all summer, but as soon as fall comes, we're not going to see him until October, late October, possibly December. I got bucks that only show up in December. I got bucks that show up in November, and that's just from knowing the deer over the year and getting trail cam pictures and actual seeing them.
Gotcha.
So during the summer, that's what we're doing. Spotting scopes, bean fields, clover fields, and trail cameras nonstop. And what I do is when I find a buck that I either know or a new buck that's in the area, I like to triangulate where he is. And by triangulate, I literally make a triangle of him. So I'll place trail cameras on food sources and travel corridors until I start picking up a buck. And then I map out, I have a folder for every trail camera I have on every farm. And then inside that folder on my computer, I have a folder for every buck that appears on every trail camera. And then I have every camera mapped on maps. So once I start getting a buck, I'll start figuring out what trail cameras he's hitting. So I'll start connecting the dots, and I'll literally make a triangle to where I know he lives by he hits these 3 trail cameras. So I can connect the dots on those 3 trail cameras, and I know that's more than likely his core area. So then once I know his core area, then that's when I move into it. So I'll start moving trail cameras, backing them up on trails to see where he's coming from. And then once I find out where he's coming from, it's just a matter of, can I hunt him? Is he walking in daylight? Is the thermals and winds going to be right? Is there a tree that I can get into and exit without him knowing he's going to be hunted? And if I'm in there, does he feel safe walking by me, or is everything in my favor and nothing's in his favor? And I think people miss that a lot. A mature buck and a 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old buck has to feel safe in his area. And if he doesn't feel safe, or that's not his benefit, then he's not going to walk through there. So when I'm looking at this, I want to know that I can control it. So if I got a rising thermal, I know I can play the wind a little bit different, because I can put the wind in his favor and the thermals in my favor and still hunt that buck until the thermals shift. So I may only go out for 2 hours that morning, because once the thermals shift around, I know I got to get out of there.
Okay.
So I'm playing on it like that. And that's how I go through the year. And then once season's in, it's just constant trail cam. I'm looking for a day walker. And I don't need him walking all day. I just need one that doesn't mind walking in daylight at some point.
Right. Gotcha. Now, when you're trying to decide when to pull out of an area because the thermals are changing, are you doing that to keep that buck from knowing you're in the area, or are you figuring that buck's going to know you were in the area and it's just a matter you don't want them to wind you while you're in the stand?
Yeah, I don't want them to wind me while I'm in the stand. I don't want to give my location away, and I don't want to risk it. So if I think thermals are changing, and you can do it with you, depending on like the Siri wind puffers and stuff, and the scent crusher wind, the real light dust that's like smoke, you can actually see thermals. So and I know everybody's done this, and a lot of people may not realize that you'll hit your wind checker in the morning or your dust or whatever, and it'll go up. Even though you blew it sideways, it went up. So your thermals are rising. So your scent's rising it then. And I learned this in the military with shooting, and that's where I really got my education on thermals. So when the earth is colder than the air, your thermals go up. When the earth is hotter than the air, your thermals go down. And if you just remember it that way, it doesn't matter if it's morning or night. Typically, your thermals rise in the morning because the sun comes up, the earth's colder, and your thermals rise. But if you have a cold front come in and the earth's been cold all day, because it was frozen ground, right, and then you got sun throughout the day, your thermals can rise all day, and vice versa. You can get cold air to come in or hot air to come in, and the ground's colder, and your thermals will reverse and rise. So as long as the air is hotter than the ground, your thermals go up, and then vice versa. So that's how we play it, and that's one of my biggest strategies. I will hunt areas that people tell me I can't hunt because of the wind, and they're wrong, because I can hunt them because of thermals. Gotcha.
All right, so you'll take a thermal analysis over a wind analysis.
I would love to have both of them, but in some spots I can only have one.
Okay.
And if that's the case, and everything's right, we got bluebird days, high pressure. We're either in the rut or we're close to the rut, and we know the bucks are on their feet, and I'm getting trail cam pictures of a buck I want to hunt, and my stand location needs me to have a rising thermal or a falling thermal. When I get that right, that's when I'm hunting it.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Now, what about your sets? What do your sets look like?
They're all different.
Okay.
So it is literally according to what I want. Because we film, it's usually 20 to 24-foot ladder sticks and 2 lock-on tree stands with lifelines going up to them.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we really started, we have a lot of CRP here, and I started building elevated ground blinds 3 years ago. So I put them 6 to 8 foot in the air and put a blind on top of them, just a pop-up blind. And that has become a phenomenal strategy and set for us. The deer literally pay no attention to them.
All right.
So, and it's changed everything for me, because I used to go, well, I can't hunt here because I don't have a tree to get in. And I know they don't like ground blinds here. Our deer just don't like ground blinds on the ground.
Okay.
And so now I don't even worry about it. I just go in and say, this is where I need to sit, and I'll put an elevated ground blind up.
Let's break down the elevated ground blind a little bit. So, what does that look like? How do you design it? What's the breakdown? Because I've heard people say this before, but I think there are a lot of people listening to this that probably don't understand the concept, and it's hard to visualize if you've never really heard it in detail. Can you break it down in detail what a elevated ground blind is?
So here's what we do. We build a 8x8, and the only reason we build an 8x8 is 2 4x8 sheets of plywood. Treated plywood. We build an 8x8 platform, and we build it just like you're building a wall to put up in a house. We build them 16 on center for structure. We put 3/4 inch plywood on it, and then we go to a local store here. I mean, there's Menards everywhere, but we go to Menards, and they sell a leg kit for playgrounds to elevate tree houses and stuff. And They got a little 10 to 20 degree taper. Then we put 4 legs on it. We put those in the corners, and we put 8 foot 4x4s so they're angled down. And then we put cross braces on them, and we build a ladder system that goes up to it. And then all we do is we buy pop-up blinds, just hub-style pop-up blinds, and we pop them up on top. We screw them down because it's wood, so where you would normally put a stake, we put a screw and screw the blind down to the platform. And then the hub system, we pull the hub system out, and then we screw it down to the side of the platform. And then we put 4 stakes, 1 stake at every leg. Well, they're form stakes for concrete. So if you've ever done concrete, you go to Menards, just tell them you want concrete form stakes. We drive the concrete form stakes in the ground to anchor it, and then it just takes a drywall screw, and we use deck screws, wood deck screws. We put a wood deck screw through every leg, so everything's down, and we secure our ladder the same way with concrete forms, and that's all we do. We set them wherever we want to hunt. If I want a food plot here because the deer are coming there, but I don't have a tree anywhere around because it's CRP, I just picked what wind I need and throw an elevated ground blind up, and we have had deer walk into them and eat underneath of them the day we put them up and not even pay attention to them.
Gotcha. So it's a platform that's 8x8 and 8 feet in the air. Is that correct?
6 to 8 feet.
6 to 8 feet. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a platform with a blind on the top. And do you do any cover for it, or is it just kind of exposed?
It is exactly open. What
Wow.
I just told you is all we do for it. And
Wow.
I think that they can see underneath of it is the key. Now, I have no facts to back this up, except I know if I take that same thing and drop that ground blind to the ground
Yep.
and actually put it on the ground, does will bust me, bucks will bust me, everything will bust me.
Gotcha.
The next day I can put it in the air, and they'll walk up to it and feed underneath of it. And I know this because I've done that multiple times.
Wow. All right. So you put it on the ground. The deer language gets very squirrely. You put it in the air, they go back to normal. That's crazy.
It's like once you get above 6 feet and it's out of their line of sight, even though it's in their peripheral vision, it doesn't bother them.
Okay. And different than a tree stand?
Yeah, because tree stands, they really don't bother unless they know you're there, and then they'll look at you and they'll give you that head bob and stuff like that.
Right.
A big buck will start walking backwards, tuck his tail, and then he'll disappear or blow, But if you move in there and you give your position away, it's just like a tree stand. They're going to bust you. But I sit back against the wall. It's all blacked out. And they're looking up at an angle. It's hard to even know that you're in there.
Right.
Because they're looking up at you, and they got to get across the windows, because you got so much wall height anyway.
Right.
The one tip I will tell that I do, because we didn't do this before, is I make sure there's a lot of ground blinds out there built for bow hunters that have the corner windows that are longer. And you want those because you're going to be able to shoot angles better.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. That's fascinating. I've never heard anybody really describe it like that, but it makes a lot of sense. I like ground blinds in general, but I've never really envisioned raising it off the ground and still, it just seems like a quick, well, not completely quick. It's going to take a little bit of work, but it seems like a fairly good solution to being completely concealed in a very short amount of time if you can plan it out.
Correct. And it's a lot quicker than you think, because we build the platforms in the summer,
Right.
and we have everything ready to go to where we just got to throw the legs on them and put the ladders on.
Yep.
So we've gotten to where we can throw one up as fast as a tree stand.
Right. That's crazy. So that now but the concealment aspect, the concealment part of that whole plan is so much greater than anything you could do in a tree stand or being a ground blind on the floor. This is a whole new level of concealment.
Yes, and the fact that you can put it anywhere. I mean, you don't have to have the perfect tree, or you don't even have to have cover. I mean, I've literally put them up in CRP and killed deer off of them. I took a buddy of mine hunting last year. We put an elevated ground blind up that week because these deer were coming out of a thicket, a CRP thicket that had some scrub trees in it, and they were walking across the CRP to a picked cornfield. So we put it up right before the picked cornfield to catch them in the transition zone, and he killed a 157-inch 6-year-old out of it.
Wow. And
he walked right up to the blind. I mean, it hadn't been there a week, and the deer walked literally 40-some yards from the blind, and he shot it.
Gotcha.
It was shotgun season.
Gotcha. How many different properties are you running?
We run just shy of 3,000 total acres and probably 12 properties.
12 properties. Okay. All right. And
so,
how much do you lean on the game camera?
Oh, that's the biggest scouting tool I have.
Okay.
I run probably so we hunt a lot of smaller properties. Even though I said we run 3,000 acres, we have one property that's 700 acres. Okay. But it's mainly field. So of that 700 acres, there's only probably actually 120 to 130 acres of total woods on 700 acres. But when I'm throwing acreage out there, I'm counting the fields too that they farm, because that's how we lease it here. But I probably run no less than, even on a 120 acre farm, or I got a farm that has 60 acres of woods on it, I run 6 trail cameras on that property alone. I run 63 to 80 trail cameras full time. And then once I'm trying to pinpoint a buck, we'll take another, to each buck we're trying to pinpoint, we'll take another 2 or 3 trail cameras in there and start moving them back from our main trail cameras, trying to figure out where he's coming and going.
Gotcha. All right. So the game camera, what did you do before game cameras? I mean, game cameras have been out for a while, but they went through the film phase of life. What did you do pre-game camera one before you had these things?
So we pretty much hunt the same strategies here. We hunt terrain and a lot of calling. I do a lot of calling for deer. I mean, that's my
Really?
favorite strategy to kill deer is actually calling. So the difference is, until the game cameras, besides sightings and rubs and scrapes and stuff like that, and your typical sign that you see, you really were guessing how big a deer was in that area. And what the trail cameras have done for us is we know what we're hunting, and we identify with the animals we're hunting, and we learn their body language, we learn their personalities. You learn a lot about them just watching them on the trail cameras and stuff. So now when we go hunting and we're in an area, whatever farm we're on, whatever stand we're on that farm, we expect to see certain deer, and not just the deer we're targeting as far as bucks. We know we're going to see this 1.5-year-old, or these 1.5-year-olds, these 2.5-year-olds. We're going to see this monarch doe that's going to possibly bust us because she knows everything in the woods. We're going to see this yearling group. We're going to see this. So what you should see in that area, where before the anticipation was you were hopeful. I hope I see a deer. Oh, that's new. And then if you didn't hunt it a bunch of times or consistently hunt an area, then you really didn't have a relationship or understand those deer as much, or I didn't.
Okay. Gotcha. What, when you're talking about the calling, this is a fascinating subject. What's your calling strategy and routine?
So we invented this, and I do seminars on this actually. We invented a calling sequence that we call the 3 Fs. Me and my best friend invented. I've been calling deer since I was 14 years old, and people used to laugh at me. Okay. Now people come to me and ask me how to do it. But so I look at a deer through the different social structures and the different part of the rut as a teenage boy in high school, and you can relate this. I mean, it is a good relationship, especially if you look at the jock teenage boy in high school, which that's what a lot of people are. They either want to fun. The other F word would be for sleeping with a girl, and then the third one would be fighting.
Right.
So if that's the only 3 things that he's interested in. And if you go back to your high school days, you either wanted to have fun, pick up girls, or fight. That's what you did.
Right.
So if you know those three things when you're calling to call or talk to whitetails, that's what I do. So I do a lot of blind calling. If the conditions are right, and I'll start calling day one of season. Now, if it's real hot and the deer aren't moving good, I'm not going to call as much. But I'm going to do social grunts, social bleats, nothing aggressive. Just letting them know, especially if I'm on a food plot or something, or on where there's acorn flats or something like that, where there's food, because I just want them to think, hey, we're hanging out over here. It's Hershey's ice cream shop. You know, that's where you go hang out at high school in the evening and stuff. Come on over. We're all hanging out here.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that I'm trying to get a buck to come to me. I'm just trying to get deer to be comfortable in that area, because deer are curious and they'll come check out other deer. So once I get the deer in that area, then we're moving through the season. Now I change to that second F word, and I'm wanting to pick up a girl,
right? Or
vice versa. I'm a girl wanting to pick up a boy. So now I'm gonna put that curiosity on him, and I'm gonna be like, hey, I like you. Come over here. You know, you take me home, you're probably gonna get lucky tonight, type thing. So I completely changed my calling sequence. I'm still gonna do some fun calling to let them know there's deer in there, but I'm gonna throw in some doe bleats and doe and estrus type bleats and stuff, and I'm gonna start throwing in buck grunts and tending grunts. And then the only time I ever use fighting, except for rattling, I do a lot of rattling, is when I'm actually calling with a call for fighting, is once I see a buck and he's not willing to come into anything else, I watch his body language, and if he has any aggression, or I think he's an aggressive buck, and that comes back to my trail cameras, I know this buck's a fighter, I know this buck's passive, I know this buck's this. If I know he's got any aggression to him, I will turn it into aggressive, challenging grunts and snort wheezes and work on turning him. And that's how I killed my buck this year, last year in Indiana. I caught him on the rigs 200 yards away, took him 16 minutes of playing with him, but I ended up shooting him at 12 yards at the base of the tree after he destroyed everything in sight for 200 yards once I got him mad.
No kidding. Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome. So you've been playing with this for a while, and you're able to you figured out kind of their language. That's which is crazy to think you could do that. I mean, you can do it with turkeys. You can figure that out. But it's amazing that you can actually see this happen with deer. That's pretty amazing, actually.
It is. When you call in deer, it is just phenomenal. And I've called in deer for people that didn't believe you could call in deer. And I actually filmed a friend of mine. She has a TV show, and she came up, and I helped her kill her first bow buck. And I told her we were going to call the deer in, and she thought it could happen. And then after she left, and we had called 24 bucks in the time she was here, we called 24 different bucks in. She was a firm believer. And I actually called her buck in twice that she ended up shooting. I called him in the first time, and he didn't come by in range, for her comfortable shooting range. He walked off. I let him get into a thicket, and then I switched because he was aggressive. So I switched from the hey, I'm a girl and I want you, to, okay, I'm a guy, you were just flirting with my girlfriend, now we're going to fight. And I snort wheezed him, and he turned right around, came right back in, gave her a 21-yard broadside shot, and was in full belief that there was a deer there. He was looking everywhere for that buck to fight.
No kidding. Wow. All right, that's something we got to put in our playbook as hunters listening to the show. That's fantastic. I love that. So cool.
And you can take it another step. So I'm passionate about this. So now my new favorite thing, and I've done this a couple times, but you got to have the right conditions. You got to be in a field that I started decoying and using scents. So I'll use different I use the buck I killed this year. I actually used scent on him. I used an aggressive gel from Tinks, and I sprayed on all the trees because I didn't want them to get downwind of me. So if they were going to get downwind of me, I wanted to hit the scent stream first as I was calling to them, so I could get two of their senses. I wanted to get their ears and their nose to say there's a buck there.
Okay.
So now I've added decoys to it. So now, and I killed a buck like this in 2015. So now you get them to come in because they hear you and they believe there's a buck there. So now you've defeated their ears and they believe it. And then you throw a decoy in the mix and they see it. And you got to have a good decoy. And there's some good decoys on the market. You just got to pay money for them. So now they visually believe that that's a buck and they're ready to fight. And then they're going to circle it. I almost every one of them will circle it or walk right in beside it, and they'll do what I call the drunk walk, where they walk in sideways to it and they hit your decoy.
Yep.
So now you add the scent to it, and a good scent product, and now you've beat their nose. And once you do that, it's the funnest thing you've ever seen because you have completely outsmarted that animal.
Right.
100% and tricked him. And the deer I shot with it, he came in, circled the decoy, I was 30 yards past where he's seen the decoy. The decoy was only 20 yards from me, but it was at an angle from him. And he was coming around the circle, and he was about to get downwind of me, and he was right in the shooting lane that I could shoot him. So I did the mat real loud, and we are at completely different places. And when I matted at him, he stared right at the decoy and locked on the decoy. Never even looked at the tree stand, never looked at me or nothing. He was 100% convinced that decoy did that.
Wow. That's a lesson right there, isn't it?
I love it. Like I said, it's I do 2 seminars when I go talk to people. I teach terrain hunting and thermals, and I teach deer calling. And those 3 things right there have killed probably 80 to 90% of my deer.
That's awesome. Very, very nice. So other than the 2 things we just talked about, do you have a preferred weapon? Do you prefer a firearm or a bow? Which guy are you?
I'm a bow hunter at heart. I mean, I love muzzleloader hunting, and I got into it, but I bow hunted only for 20 years. I put everything down, and I bow hunted only from the age of 17 to the age of 37. And then I started rifle antelope hunting, and it was 22 years before I killed a whitetail with anything but a bow from the day I decided to change.
Wow.
And then the only reason that happened is I drew a tag for a muzzleloader whitetail hunt.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
So that was what I was going to hunt with, so I did it. And I tell you what, I enjoyed it. And I shoot them with everything now. But I'd say 60 to 80% of my hunts a year, depending on the tags I draw, are archery hunts.
Okay, gotcha. Are you a scent control fanatic?
Yes.
Okay.
To say fanatic would be an understatement.
All right. What's your regimen look like?
So I start the year off before season, making sure everything that I have is 100% scent-free. And I mean anything from the totes, my boots, I wash everything in scent-free product. I sit them outside. I have a room in my garage that I keep everything in, so it doesn't even get around my dogs. It doesn't get around my wife. It doesn't even go back into the house once it's clean. I clean my vehicle. We started using a scent crusher, which is the ozone product. And so now I use it all the time. And in fact, I just went turkey hunting, and I lived in my truck for a little over a month. And I use their ozone Go because even in turkey season, I don't want my truck to smell, and it gets up. My chocolate lab goes everywhere with me. So I want my truck scent free. I want all my clothes scent free. I never wear an outfit more than twice.
Yep.
I wash religiously. Now we're using the scent crusher bags and everything to eliminate the scent on the go. And I don't touch anything until I'm ready to hunt. So everything, I got plug-ins in the back of my truck, so I don't have to put my clothes in my truck, so I can run my bags and all my gear bags in the back of my truck. All my boots and stuff stay in the back of the truck. The only thing that comes in my truck is my weapon and my backpack, and that's just because I don't have nothing big enough to put it in at the current moment. And I don't care if it's -9 degrees outside with 15-mile-an-hour winds. I strip down to everything in my truck, to my underwear and socks, and get dressed at the truck every time and undressed every time before I get back in my truck. I don't wear a stitch of clothing that I hunt in other than in the woods.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So you are a fanatic. Got it.
Yes.
Yep.
But I'm playing games. A lot of people don't. I believe in the wind, and I believe everything. But just like I told you, I'll do the thermal thing that people don't believe in, and you got to really be scent free when you're playing that line like that. And no one can be 100% scent free. And I'll tell you this right now, it's impossible. But what you want is that 1 to 7 seconds or 10 seconds that he's trying to make up his mind that may allow you to kill that animal. He's going to figure out eventually,
right.
But if you can buy those extra seconds, because if you've done your set right and you've got all your shooting lanes cut, everything's right, when he gets to that point, you should have killed him.
Right.
Or be on the verge of killing him.
Right. So you're looking for any edge you can get. Just to make that, you add them up, you give yourself as many chances as you can. Now you got something that you can work with.
Right. It's a bunch of small things that equal a big thing at the end. And that's what I believe in. If you do all these steps, this is going to equal results at the end. If you skip these 5 steps, now you just reduce your chances greatly.
Gotcha. All right. Very, very cool. What about the nocturnal bucks, the ones that aren't walking around a little bit in daylight? Do you have a strategy for attacking them?
So I believe bucks can be nocturnal. I just don't believe bucks are nocturnal as far as 100%. What they do is they reduce their core area, and they're in an area you can't hunt them. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. So I'll run back to trail cameras. I'll run cell phone cameras I'll put them out in areas I know more mature bucks are going to live, or because I know where they live because I've triangulated them. And I'll get pictures of them on their feet. The problem is they're not moving in more than an acre. They're moving in daylight. They'll get up, feed, move around and stuff, but they're staying in that 1 to 5 acres. So unless I have an area I can slip in and kill them, I just don't hunt them. I wait till I start getting them on other trail cameras in daylight to hunt them. And there's just some bucks. I hunted a buck for 3 years. I started hunting him at 4.5, and he ended up getting killed at 7.5 by the neighbor. And I never was able to hunt him in daylight. I saw him all summer. I had pictures of him on the cell phone trail cameras in daylight, but he was never in an area that I could physically hunt him in daylight hours.
Okay.
And the only way he got killed is he followed a doe in the rut across the holler into a field, and he got shot by the neighbor opening day of shotgun season. And he was within 200 yards of where I knew he was bedding. But he literally just got up off the side of that ridge and walked across the holler, and on the other side of the holler was the neighbor sitting.
All right, James, so I asked you to think about your most memorable deer story before we started, and I'd like to go on a little hunt with you and see if you can give us a play-by-play and really slow it down for us and make it feel like we're standing there right there with you. Where are we going to go on your deer story?
We're going to go all the way back to 2004.
Okay.
And that was the year I got out of the Marine Corps. I got out of the Marine Corps January of 2004, and that was the first time in 9 years that I could really focus on hunting. Now, a little backstory, my passion was deer hunting, and I spent a lot of times overseas and stuff. I read about deer hunting nonstop, and so I was anxious to put all this knowledge from books and stuff like that, and I used to read about biologists and what biologists were doing, so I wanted to put all this knowledge to use. So that whole year, what we talked about earlier, from February on, I scouted deer. I did the whole process, and I had never at this time, in 2004, I'd never killed a record book buck. I've killed some good bucks, 120, 125, 130, but they wouldn't net poke young, but I'd never killed a record book buck. So I'm on this ridge, and I'm hunting terrain. I was actually hunting a place. I needed a northwest wind, which blew it to where the bucks walked, but as long as I had a falling thermal, there was a drainage ditch between me and the trail they walked on, and I could suck my thermals into a drainage ditch. So I had to wait till I had all those conditions right, and it ended up being November 2nd. I mean, we're talking 13 years ago almost, and I can remember this hunt like it was yesterday. And the conditions are right. I climbed up there in the evening, perfect falling thermals. Air temperature was good. I did some blind calling. Just like I said, I did a little bit of fun calling. Nothing happened. So I changed it up to some doe bleats and some tending buck grunts and a little bit more aggressive buck grunts. I look up the ridge, and at 90 yards, there stands a big buck. I knew he was at least 4.5. I had pictures of him. That's old school trail cameras there, where I was going up and developing the film and standing there at CVS watching them come out of the CVS machine, just hoping there was a buck on there, not weeds. But
CVS or Rite Aid, I remember those days.
Yeah. So I knew the buck, and he stopped and he's looking around. So I throw calls just like elk hunters do. So I took the grunt call, put it behind me on the direction I wanted him to walk. I did a couple of aggressive grunts, just rat, real hard at him. Mm-hmm. He turned, he looked at me, he walked maybe 10 yards, and this is the first buck I've ever seen do this, and just annihilated a sapling in front of me. I mean, just destroyed this sapling, started tearing up bushes, and was just going crazy.
No kidding.
And so I'm in awe just watching this, and I'm in a split poplar tree. And you just remember that I'm in a split poplar, so I have to shoot between the two trees.
Yep.
And he puts on a show out there for what seems like an eternity. It was probably 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't know, but it seemed like an eternity. And so he starts walking down the logging road to me. And every 20 to 30 yards, 2 more times before he got in bow range to me, he's destroying trees. I mean, he is ticked off. And then he comes up and he's going to step over an old tree that's fallen tree. It wasn't very big, probably 6-8 inches round, but he had to step over it. Once he stepped over it, he was going to be broadside at 25 yards. I was going to stop him and shoot him. I can replay it. I thought about this scenario. I'm one of those people that when I get in a tree stand, I look everywhere I can shoot, and I visualize what's going to happen if something comes and what I have to do when the animal gets there. And I knew once he stepped over the tree, Matt, stop him, hammer him. So I'm in between this split poplar. He goes to step over the tree, and instead of stepping over the tree, he pins his ear back and just blows up, and hair standing on the back of his neck, everything standing. And what I call the drunk walk, when they walk sideways to you. He walked sideways He walked sideways because he knew where I'd call him, because I had actually overcalled this deer. And when he was out there at 80 yards, I left this out. I grunted at him to try to get him to come, and he pinpointed me, and which that was a mistake on me. So he drunk walks right into me, what I call the drunk walk, and he's at 4 yards, and I can't shoot him. And now he's coming around to the other side of the tree, so I have to lower my bow. I'm looking through my feet through the grate on the grates on the wire on the tree stand, and I'm looking at his rack come underneath me, underneath the tree. So I have to pull my bow back in between the trees and reposition myself, and he walks out off and under my tree on the other side, and I'm able to get my bow drawn back, and I had like a softball size hole in a bush down there and some saplings, and I thought to myself, as much as you shoot a bow, if you can't put an arrow through there, you shouldn't be hunting. I honestly thought that, and then I just squeezed the trigger off, and he went about 60 yards and fell over. And that was my first official big buck, but so much first happened in that hunt, from tearing up the trees to seeing the buck for the first time do the drunk walk to me, and seeing when you are that aggressive with a deer. And I've called the deer when I was younger, but I was never that aggressive to them, how much you can upset them. And the show they'll put on for you was just amazing. And then the adrenaline rush I had, and then him walking sideways and me not being able to shoot him, and then trying to get between that tree. And I was scared to death to move and get around on him, but I knew I had to shoot him. And then it just worked out. And I have him hanging in my house now, and he's right where I can look at him every time I watch TV, because that's the most special deer to me, because I put everything I'd learned, and it worked out perfect. I mean, everything that I wanted to do, and all the strategies I use today, every one of them was on that deer.
Gotcha. It's nice when things work out the way you hoped that they would. It's and you put all of your little tools together, like, finally it all worked. That's awesome.
Right.
Great story, James. Loved it. All right. So we've reached the 10 rapid fire questions section of the show. And if you've listened to our shows in the past, you may know a few of these, but if you haven't, they're completely foreign. I haven't prepped you for these. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
Sure. We'll try it.
All right. Good luck. All right. What's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Study. I mean, if you're studying your animals and you know what you're hunting, you can figure out how to kill them.
Mm-hmm. Excellent answer. All right. We all have these things that we call it a superstition, call it maybe it's actually a key to success that we sometimes get attached to. There's a device or something that other than your firearm or weapon, and we leave it at home or in the truck, and it drives us crazy if we don't have it with us. What's that one thing for you?
I have lucky hats, and they've changed over the years because I've worn them out, but I have a hat right now. It's a Cabela's Max 1 hat that after my turkey season, I think it's on 40-some animals that I've killed with it.
Wow. All right. That is a good hat.
It's part of it.
Don't lose that one for sure.
No.
All right. Well, what's your biggest pet peeve in life?
It's arrogance. Okay. I really do not like arrogant and cocky people.
Okay. Very good one. I'm with you on that one. I don't like them either. All right. How old are you today, James?
42 years old.
42. Knowing what you know today about life, what would you tell the 22-year-old James Blakenbeckler?
I did not take chances I should have taken in life. And it goes for multiple aspects of my life, from jobs to careers to hunting to opportunities, even the hunting opportunities. I would go back and tell myself that whatever you turn down today is something you're not going to get tomorrow.
Gotcha. All right. Very, very good. Okay. You meet a stranger in a hotel lobby at some hunting convention somewhere in the world, and they strike up a conversation, and they ask you what you do for a living. What do you say?
I actually tell everybody my real job. So I do consulting for maintenance companies, and I'm a project manager for a medical company. So I always turn to what I really do for a living and what pays my mortgage.
Gotcha. Very good. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had 4 eggs with onions, mushrooms, and chives in them. Scrambled.
Oh, man. That sounds fantastic. Wow. All right. I have to go deer hunting with you, and you can make breakfast. That's awesome. You get your own billboard on the side of a highway, anywhere you want. It's a blank canvas. You can put anything you want on it. What would it say?
I would probably do some inspirational quote, to be honest. And if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, as I get older in life, I think this world has got more negativity than it's ever been. So I like to, multiple times a week, try to inspire people to be a better version of themselves, whatever it is. Gotcha. And we're all at different stages in life, so it's just different for everybody.
Okay. All right. If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
The first person that pops into my head, successful? Man, that's a hard one because I don't think of people as successful. I don't know. I would think that if I follow a guy on Instagram, his name's Ty Lopez, and he's a young entrepreneur that is just encouraging people and helping people with their lives. And I think he gives back a lot. And I know he's rich, but he's still giving back and teaching people how to better themselves.
Nice.
And I think he's at a point in his life that that's success because he doesn't need anything. He can help other people.
Nice. Very nice. All right. What's a day in your life look like?
So right now, because I'm in the off season and I actually work from home, I get up every morning around 5:30. I go to the gym, I lift for an hour, and then I do an hour of cardio. And then I go to we have a studio here because we own our own production company. And I get with our editor and we plan out the day or what projects we're doing. And then I leave there probably around lunch. I go home. I cook 4 more eggs because I eat a lot of eggs a day.
Right.
And then I start on my project managements. You know, a lot of times what I'm doing with him is the start of projects, and then I'll go home and continue to work on them while he works on his stuff. And then in the evenings, I do another hour of CrossFit every night, and then I play with my dogs, and I think about hunting.
Wow.
Pretty much 24/7 on that part.
Sounds like you keep the fitness right up there. That's pretty good. Very nice.
Elk season's coming, and I'm not getting younger.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. And finally, what's a deer hunting day in your life look like?
It just depends on what state I'm in. So, like, let's just say here in Indiana, I get up first thing in the morning. I check everything that's going on as far as barometric pressure, wind direction, temperatures, and then I start strategizing where I'm going to hunt that morning. I'm going to pick up my cameraman. We go to the tree stand. Depending on what the day's doing, we're going to hunt somewhere between 10 and 12 time of the year. Get down, eat lunch, switch tree stands for the evening. It's all based on the conditions, and hunt till dark, then go home, clean up, and do it all again the next day.
Very, very cool, man. Well, that's the 10 rapid-fire questions, James. I think you did quite well. Thank you for doing that.
Hey, no problem.
So where can we find more about you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with us and we want to know more about you or Open Season TV?
So you can watch us starting in July. We're on the Pursuit channel, which is Dish, DirecTV. They just added AT&T, Uverse, Sony Bios, Roku. We're on 4 times a week, third and fourth quarter, 7:30 Monday mornings, 11 p.m. Wednesday nights, 6:30 Friday nights, and noon on Saturdays. All those times are Eastern. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, Open Season TV. Me personally, James Blakenbeckler, on any of them. BB Hunt 53 is what I go by, Snapchat, Instagram, stuff like that. That's from the military. I've just never changed that handle. So I've had that. And then James Blakenbeckler at Open Season TV. I have a personal Facebook page because my normal Facebook page is over 5,000 friends most of the time. So unless somebody falls off, I can't add anybody.
Gotcha. All right. Very good. Well, James, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on our show. This is episode number 200, and I think you're a perfect fit to kind of celebrate episode 200. You're a skilled hunter. You brought out so much to the picture here. You're doing some great things in the outdoors, and being a former Marine, I really appreciate you being part of the Marine Corps and doing everything you did with the Marine Corps, and I'm glad it's still an important part of your life. And I can't think of a better way to cap off episode number 200.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on here. It's actually, this is my first podcast, so I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I've listened to a few, but I really enjoy myself. I enjoy talking hunting, man. It's the greatest thing ever.
You know, now and then we have those mind-blowing interviews that you're just like, wow, I never thought of it like that, or I never thought that tactic was actually even effective. Or James brings all that stuff to this interview, and I'm glad that he decided to come on the show. And what a great way to wrap up episode number 200. Holy smokes! I guarantee you that the people listening to this show, it'll be one of our more downloaded ones because it's packed full of tips that people aren't thinking about.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that when you can learn something, it's always pleasure to your ear.
It really is. It really is. So thanks to James Blakenbeckler for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast. And I have to apologize for botching his last name several times during our original interview. I think I finally got it, though. So but what an amazing story. So thanks for that. And Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Yeah, we do, Jay, and it's going to get into your parking spot.
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, Morris'sSportingGoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morris's Sporting Goods.
Every time you pull up to a place, you always got a parking spot. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're struggling to see deer and you don't know why, and you've really broke down everything you're doing in the woods and on your approach into the woods, and sometimes it boils down to where you park your vehicle. And it's a great time of year right now to go out and trim you off a new spot where you can either pull off the road or have your county come in and put in a driveway, put in a culvert pipe, and put some gravel down where you can actually access another parking spot different from the year before or the last 10 years that you've been parking in the same spot. So just take in consideration if you're going into a field and seems like you can always see your truck from where your tree stand is, the deer can usually see that too. So they always come out to the edge of the woods, and for some reason they won't commit to the field or come to the woods that you're in. You might ought to think that, man, they might be seeing my truck, and maybe I ought to relocate that. If you got access to a different parking point, it's always nice to change that up and give them just a little different approach to educating how you're getting in and out of the woods and when you're there and when you're not. So just keep that in mind, and I hope that just by changing your vehicle location, you have better success.
Nice. All right, the parking spot trick. I like it. That's really cool. Very nice. So thank you to Morris's Sporting Goods for sponsoring the Chubby Tines Tip of the Week, and thank you to our other great sponsors for sponsoring this entire show. Without them, this show is not possible. So we wanted to reach out and say thank you once again to Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Horny Buck Seed Company, the Euro Hanger, and once again, Morris's Sporting Goods. So Dusty, where can we find you when we're not in Big Buck Podcast Studios?
Right now it's on the hay tractor, but shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Facebook, Chubby Tines Outdoors, or shoot me a request or a follow on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Likewise, the best place to initiate any conversation with me is by email, and that's jay@bigbuckregistry.com. After that, you can reach me by Facebook mail, for example. Just send a message to the Facebook page. Dusty and I both monitor those and respond to each and every one that come in. And if you'd like to participate in our buck pick program, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all the instructions will be right there so that you'll be featured on our Facebook page, our flagship 250,000 die-hard deer hunting fans hanging out over there, enjoying deer hunting and listening to podcasts about deer hunting just like we do right here. And let's see, we're also on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And on YouTube, you can actually listen to all of our shows, including all of our live segments that we're doing on Thursday nights. And that's Thursday nights, 8:30 Eastern. We're doing a live show with past guests. We're having them come back and showing us what their house looks like and talking about where they've been since the last time we interviewed them, and talking about some of the deer hanging on their wall in their hunt room or whatever it is. It's kind of interesting to see kind of what their life looks like, not just what it sounds like. And that's, again, Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you're a listener and you want some other alternatives on where to listen to this show, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on iTunes. And please, if you enjoy the show, please subscribe. You can also find us on iTunes. You can also find us on TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Blueberry, Libsyn, and I think that's about everywhere we're at as far as audio. Dusty, it's been another amazing show, and I can't believe we hit number 200, but we did, and I can't wait for another 200.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, Jay. Well, I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott. This is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.